Hello, beautiful creatures of the world, and welcome back to Coffee with Kerri-Lynn. It is a freezing day in the Crown of Maine on the Canadian border. We just hit about 16 degrees. The sun finally just came out, of course, because I sit down to record. All morning long, I've been back and forth to the barn. It's been single digits. It's been sunny. We've had snow squalls. It squalled a few minutes ago, so I'm really not complaining about the sun. Stay, please, keep warming us. And I know you're interfering with the video a little bit, but I don't care. We are heading into frigid February. It's been a great winter up here so far until a couple weeks ago. And now we're going to experience the Arctic blast that we always experience in February. But spring is on the way, guys. Just hang in there. If you haven't been out today, don't bother. Sit in front of your wood stove. Kick your feet up. Wrap yourself up in that nice cozy blanket. Grab a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, a cup of hot chocolate, whatever floats your boat. Grab your favorite book. Maybe you want to grab some knitting. Do a puzzle. Just turn on some tunes and relax, because it's one of those days. It's an inside day. So what are we going to talk about on Coffee Talk today? Today we are going to talk about the Autonomous Zone in Atlanta, Georgia. Did you know there was an Autonomous Zone in Atlanta, Georgia? It's been there for about a year and a half, and it hasn't been covered by the mainstream media. Yeah. Why? Well, mainstream media's got their reasons why they didn't want you to know about it. Why is it being covered now? Just starting. About a week and a half ago, a brilliant journalist, Andy Ngo, he is also the editor of the Post Millennial, broke the story on a few spoiled, privileged, rich kids that were just arrested in the Autonomous Zone for extreme violence, domestic terrorism. They have other criminal charges laid against them as well. He did a piece on him, and all of a sudden the mainstream media decides to pick it up. He's been going around the YouTube circuit. Not even the YouTube media circuit knew about this, and they're kind of right down there. And some of them, the bigger channels, they're right there, and they had no clue this was going on not far from them until Andy's story hit the mainstream, and now it's the talk of the town. Stop Cop City. That's the movement to shut down the construction of the future Atlanta Public Safety Training Center. The training center is supposed to be being built on 85 acres, and it is going to cost $90 million. So a group of do-gooders got it in their heads to go and stop this training center from being built. And they had called themselves Atlanta Defenders of the Forest. I call them dumbass forest people. I'm not happy with these people at all. And the last group to be arrested was spoiled little rich kids. One of them from Kennebunkport, Maine. These people could do such good with their backgrounds, with the amount of money they have access to. They could do so much good. Instead, they join extremist, left-wing, nut job movements. It's got a smattering of Weather Underground all over it. Another group of spoiled little rich kids. If you don't know what the Weather Underground is because you are too young, just Google it, Bill Ayers. And then Google, where are they now? Because they ended up later on in their lives, they ended up in some important positions surrounding some important people in this country and in other countries. But back to the Atlanta Defenders of the Forest, or those dumbass forest people. In May 2022, forest people militants were arrested after several police were assaulted and pelted with rocks and Molotov cocktails. Nice group of kids, huh? Of course, nice group of children. They were raised well. Their parents should be proud. In August 2022, 6 were arrested for trying to burn a man to death when he drove into the area. Parents need to be proud of these people. Too much money, too much time on their hands. This poor gentleman drove into the area, and these forest people incinerated his car while he was still in it. And there is stories all over the internet now about this gentleman who had to escape from his car and flee for his life because these jackwagons, I have to be nice, I'm on YouTube, don't want to get, foul language strike, because these jackwagons tried to kill him. They tried to murder him. Isn't that terrible? Left-wing groups have been using Twitter to fundraise for the bail for these forest people. Is all this starting to sound familiar? Have you put the pieces of the puzzle together? And lastly, we have the story that kind of ended all the secrecy for the forest people. We have on December 13th, several spoiled rich kids were arrested. And that got the floodgates open. Absolutely. And it could no longer be ignored by the mainstream media. And suddenly after that, we had CNN reporting on it. I think MSNBC is reporting on it. And they're all picking it up and running with it. Ooh, my goodness, we did not realize, we did not know. BS. BS. Mainstream media outlets, you darn well knew, and you didn't cover it. And now we're going to discover why. And I'm not going to name these people that were arrested, because why add to the fame? They're already proud of themselves for being arrested for their great cause. Maybe we should interview parents of these children and ask if they're proud of their children. You raised this. How are you feeling about it now? In the group, one person in particular in the group that was arrested on December 13th, she was a person who was featured in an article that was sympathetic to the forest people cause. She was one of the anonymous people of the Atlanta Forest Defenders who appeared in an Open Society Foundation sponsored story about the zone that The Guardian did. Gee, care. Left-wing organizations, people doing bail fund via Twitter. Atlanta forest people. Open Society Foundations. Where have we heard this before? It's familiar, isn't it? Enter the reason why mainstream media probably didn't pick it up. Spooky dude. George Soros. Did you guess it? Is the chairman of Open Society Foundations. And Mr. Soros has given more than $32 billion of his personal fortune to Open Society Foundations. Now, in those arrested on December 13th, a brilliant rich kid, 22-year-old man, hailing from Kennebunkport, Maine. He's the son of a multi-millionaire. And prior to going to defend the forest with the forest people, he was living comfortably in his parents' mansion. This brilliant jackwagon was charged with domestic terrorism and other crimes on December 13th, 2022, following robberies, carjacking. Oh, just a minute. We have a spare paper. Following stories of private properties being attacked, carjackings, and much more. Children of privilege have a responsibility to society. They have a responsibility. They have money, they have influence, and with that comes a great responsibility to do good in society. They can take their money, they can take their influence, they can take their privilege. They can sponsor any cause that they want to. When I was young, my parents are from the 60s. I'm vintage 71. When I was young and I was getting to the age of teendom in the 80s, my parents, my mom sat me down And she said, you know, you look back in time a little bit to the 60s, to all the movements. There will be causes that will come up in your life that you want to get behind. There will be movements that you want to get behind. It is your job to do the research on these groups. If you are going to run their line, you need to know the people behind the movement. You need to know where the line is coming from because they want to use you as their voice. She told stories to be very wary of crazy movements. Not too much in the 80s. But we had to be diligent, do our due diligence. Just don't back anybody. These are stories. These are lessons that the baby boomers learned. Because turns out, well, they're underground. There was some shade with some of these organizations, with some of these movements back in the day, that the young folks did not do their research. They did not know who was behind the movements. And there was a lot of violence and turmoil. If you're rich and you're privileged and you can live in mommy and daddy's mansion, you got a wing instead of a basement, good for you. You want to go do good? Make sure you're not backing organizations that are hurting people, trying to kill police officers, trying to murder citizens, stealing and robbing. And think that you can hide behind mommy and daddy's money. Now, I do agree these people should be called out by name. But I don't want to give them too much credit. Not on my channel anyways. It's sad and it's disgusting. We all have a responsibility for improving society. Do not get hooked up with groups that have a flashy message without knowing the groups that you're backing, the groups that you're spewing the line for. You're their voice. You're their soldier. They're using you. I saw downtown last summer. The lovely children sitting in front of the public library holding their signs, not realizing who is backing these movements. It's the same people over and over and over again. So understand, young folks, when you have a cause and you go for that cause and you want to speak on that cause and you want to back that cause and you want to support that cause and you want to go to these rallies, you want to go to these protests, you need to understand who's behind that movement. Because these jackwagons have done more harm than good. They're a cult and they will suck you in. And that is the moral of this story. Know whose line you're voicing. Do your research. And as far as these privileged individuals that were just arrested, I hope they throw the goddamn book at you. I hope you spend 35 years in prison. I hope your parents are proud of you. Beautiful creatures of the world. Every day is a new day. Every day is a new start. Carpe diem, my beautiful creatures, because nobody promises you a tomorrow. Make a difference today. Ciao, guys.